Hey everybody, welcome to the weekly news recap of the 23rd to the 29th of September 2024. So this week, Sony had a state of play on Tuesday, I think, to show off a couple of things. We're just going to run through it here. So the first thing they showed off, Astrobot is getting some DLC later on in the year. It's going to add some speedrun levels and a couple of new cameo bots. This is kind of similar to what they did for Astro's Playroom, in that later down the line, after the PS5 had launched and people had played it for a little bit, they did start adding in some extra stuff to Astro's Playroom, so it does seem like it's going to be much the same thing for Astrobot. Two of the bots they showed off, one of them is a Helldivers, and the other one is Eve from Stellar Blade, but then there's 8 others. We don't know what the rest of those will be. On the other hand, they might phone it in and make 4 of them Helldivers. I don't know, because they did that with Killzone, so who knows. The big game that was shown off, yes, I am a million years old. Here we go. Ghost of Yotai. This is essentially the sequel to Ghost of Tsushima, but it's going to be starring a new character, new area of Japan, and so on and so forth. So, sequel is maybe not the right word, it's just another entry in the series. It doesn't appear to be doing anything massively different to the first game. Maybe looks a little bit nicer. They have the black and white filter over it, which is something they added to Ghost of Tsushima Director's Cut, which was essentially the PS4 to PS5 port of Ghost of Tsushima. Ghost of Yotai has this mountain in the background. It seems to be a focus of the story, Mount Yotai, 1603. I'm not sure if this is... if they're also following an historical event. So Ghost of Tsushima did follow... the Mongol invasion of Japan, of the Isle of Tsushima, that was then pushed back. They never actually made it to mainland Japan. So it's not clear if Ghost of Yotai is doing something similar, or if it's just setting it in that period, and we're just going to go from there. You appear to be playing a Ronin, female Ronin, and you can imagine that side of the video game community has already said their part about that. She's already getting harassment. Good shit. Anyway, yes, it looks very pretty, and I will be playing it. Anyway, I don't think you could dual wield in the first game. I don't think any of the stances had dual wielding in it. Anyway, this wolf pops up a couple of times in the trailer. Not clear if this is just like a lone wolf thing, or just a motif, or Do you actually hang out with a wolf? Seems like it. Anyway, music is pretty good. It's playing the zither, which is on her back there. This is like a Japanese guitar. Jin Sakai from the first game played the flute. It seems this character... don't think we know her name yet. I'm not sure. But anyway, she has a different one. Anyway, that's Ghost of Yotai. Next year, some point. There's no other release date other than that. As had already been rumored and leaked by the ESRB, Horizon Zero Dawn is in fact getting a remaster again. I believe it already had a PS5 port, but whatever, now it's getting a remaster instead, and they're adding completely superfluous things to it that will make no difference whatsoever. Anyway, it's coming out the end of October 31st, and to and a question that I asked last week, which was, when this was still a rumor, it is going to be coming to PC as well. And it is a €10 upcharge to go from the PS4 to the PS5 version. They still have not mentioned if there's an upcharge on the PC version. And I would say that typically there is no charge for PC updates. They are typically free. On the other hand, Sony has also not typically put its games on the PC, so there's going to be a bit of a weirdness here, because if they're going to be charging PS4 players or the PS5 version, but they're not going to charge PC players, there's going to be a bit of a disconnect there. And if they're going to try to charge both, there's also going to be a bit of a disconnect there. So this will be interesting to see how they go about it. And then there's obviously the issue in that if it is effectively a patch on the original PC version and they try to charge for it, then it could rather easily just be modded to remove the charge. So they're going to have some issues there. But hey, they're going to make their money back anyway, because they decided that we don't want you getting it for cheap. So we're also going to up the price of the original Horizon Zero Dawn Complete Edition, which has been trending at about £20, €20, something like that. There's a chart here of its price over the last year or so. So since October 2023, it went down on a sale to like under a tenner, and then it went back up to a little bit under €20, like 19.99, something like that. And it's been pretty much doing that. It drops down every now and then for sales, but for the most part has been around the €20 mark, $20 mark. And then randomly, when they decide the remaster's coming out, it goes up to 40. Good shit. That's good shit, Sony. So they want the extra tenner and they want an extra €20 on top of that as well if you haven't bought it yet. That's good shit. That's some good shit from Sony. All right, anyway, moving on. They did not announce the other rumored one, which was that Days Gone was also getting a remaster. They didn't say anything about it at the State of Play, so that's still a rumor. LEGO Horizon Adventures has a release date, November 14th. Has a bunch of pre-order things, costumes. You have a Ratchet costume and a Sackboy costume, I think, or something else. Then they talked a little bit more about the PlayStation 5 Pro. It's still way too expensive. The PS5 Chroma collection is a new, just some controllers and colors and what have you. It's got that sort of, I don't know what the thing is, like an opalescent thing where the color kind of looks like it changes depending on the angle. I like this one, but I don't like it for the price that they want, so that'll be that. Monthly games, we will talk in the monthly game section. We'll move back. The Lake House. The Lake House is the next expansion for Alan Wake 2. It is actually out next month anyway, and I think it might actually be next week. Interestingly, it doesn't appear to have much to do with Alan Wake itself. It seems to be more of a extended universe thing, as it is mostly focusing on the Federal Bureau of Control from the game Control. This is one of their outhouses. This is one of their outposts called the Lake House. And the Lake House is the thing in the original Alan Wake. It's kind of the central mystery of the whole thing. Whether it's the same thing or not, I don't know, but it's very clearly going for Control rather than Alan Wake. So that's kind of an interesting crossover thing there. And there's a jump scare there in a second that I'm going to stop before we get there. Next month, so there's no release date for it just yet, but it is October at some point. Arc-Age Chronicles looks like an online MMO thing. And it's apparently the latest installment in the Arc-Age series. I have never heard of the Arc-Age series. So either this has completely passed me by, or it is a very niche game that has suddenly gotten a massive budget. Anyway, I'm going to skip ahead a little bit. It does have some MMO-ness to it. There's a little bit of, action RPG elements as well. This is clearly a hub world. You have different players jumping in and hanging out at the anvils there and walking around the shopping areas and stuff like that. They're clearly not NPCs the way they're moving. So what kind of game this is exactly? This is PvP from the look of it, would be my guess, because there's like very little hits done. But again, we don't really know what kind of game this is going to be, and we just have next year at some point. I'd imagine it's an online something or other, but is it like a full-on MMO? Is it like a Monster Hunter type thing? I think we really know just yet. It does have the vibe of a Monster Hunter thing, because you're not seeing them fighting just mobs of enemies or exploring environments or what have you. A lot of what they're showing is just combat with big enemies. Could be different. I mean, there's mobs there, so maybe there is some mob element to it. Anyway, that's Arc-Age Chronicles. Again, no release date for that. It's just next year at some point. Dragon Age the Veilguard, just reminding people that it's out. Or not out, that it's out soon, October 31st. It showed off a boss fight against one of the dragons. It looked pretty impressive, but still feels weird. Don't know what they're doing with Dragon Age. Anyway, Dynasty Warriors Origins, January of next year. It's Dynasty Warriors. It's the 1 versus 1,000 kind of thing. It looks nicer, but it still looks like the same kind of game. Fantasian Neo Dimension has a release date now, early December 5th. This is a game that was exclusive to Apple Arcade for a while, for like a year, maybe 2 years. It was created by the original director of the original Final Fantasy. So I was kind of pissed that it was exclusive to Apple Arcade. It's like, I am not buying an Apple product and then a subscription just to play one game. I was really hoping it would eventually make its way. To be honest, I thought it would make its way to PC at some point. And I think it is PC as well. It's PC and PlayStation. I don't think it's making its way to Xbox or Switch, which is a bit of a weird one. It's a bit of a weird one that it's not going to Switch. It's not so weird that it's not going to Xbox because it just doesn't have much of a presence in Japan right now. Anyway, we'll be playing a little bit of that when it comes out because I am quite interested in it. Fear of the Spotlight has been out on PC for a while. It's making its way over to PlayStation in time for Halloween, October 22nd. This is one of the first entries in the Blumhouse video game publishing arm. Fortnite has a controller, whatever. Hell Is Us has been silent for a good while. We haven't seen much from it in ages, it seems. But it is slated to be a PS5 action-adventure, potentially next year, but I don't think any release date or anything was mentioned. It has a Soulsy action RPG vibe to it. The kind of difference is that it's like an action RPG and Death Stranding at the same time. It's like parallel dimension seeping over into the real world, got strange otherworldly creatures and what have you. The weaponry you seem to be using is that like a lot of it is set in modern times. The outfits that everyone's wearing is modern times. The weapons they're all using are modern times. And then randomly there's some like stuff that looks like it's out of fantasy medieval land. And your character at least appears to have a sword. See there, they have a great sword. It's not so great. Anyway, the Death Stranding vibe mostly has to do with the drone that's following you, the rain and like the poncho and what have you. That's really what's giving me more of a Death Stranding vibe than anything else. But you can see the action RPG elements to it. There's certainly some soulsing going on there. We don't know much about the game. And I suppose the enemies give me a bit of a Death Stranding vibe too. I don't think there was a release date or anything. I think it's just reintroducing you to it because they haven't talked about it in a very long time. Yeah, pretty much. Hitman World of Assassination, which is essentially Hitman 1, 2, and 3, the newest ones, is getting a PSVR 2. It's not clear if this is a port or not, because there is already a PSVR version of Hitman, but it's not very good. There's also a MetaQuest version of it that is awful, and then there is like a proper high-end VR headset that is actually decent. So this new one seems like it's a port of the PC versions, the higher-end ones. So you'll have full dual wielding and intuitive gestures, as they put it there, which essentially means when you reach out to press a button, you actually press the button. You don't just walk up to it and press the button on your controller, even though, I mean, technically that is what you're doing, but you have to actually reach out with your hand and do it. And the dual wielding means you can actually aim the gun properly with just gesturing, which is kind of what you expect in a VR game. The original one on the PSVR did not have that. You had to aim with an analog stick the same way you always did. And then this was kind of leaked ahead of time, and I didn't want to believe it. But it turns out it's true. Soul Reaver 1 and 2 are getting a remaster, and it'll be out December 12th, I believe, is the release date. So I am very shook that it's happening. These are probably some of my favorite games. Definitely Soul Reaver 1. So we will be playing it when it comes out, probably back to back. I don't imagine I'll take a break in between because the story of Soul Reaver 1 kind of ends abruptly, and you kind of jump straight back into Soul Reaver 2. Showing off a little bit of it there. That's the original. Here's the remaster. So it does seem like it's getting the Tomb Raider 1 to 3 remaster treatment. Originally, it would have been the same developer. And it's also the same engine, I believe. Melchiah looks fucking weird. I'm just going to say that. Like, I never got that. Hang on. There's a bit. Let's go back to Melchiah for a second. So Melchiah is this boss. So look at his face. Apparently he has like a metal mask thing, and I never got that from this model. But probably the crazier thing is his left shoulder is meant to have this kind of subsumed human body in it, apparently. That's not what I always got from Elkaya, that he was just a melty flesh guy. And I guess that still comes across here. But I never got that there was like a skeleton sticking out of him. Like I never got that from him. Anyway, so there's gonna be some extra details that I was not aware of. Anyway, I'm really looking forward to play this. So December 12th, Soul Reaver 1 and 2. They also mentioned that Legacy of Kain Blood Omen, which is the very first game before Soul Reaver, is also going to be part of a PlayStation Plus classic catalog thing at some point. And it does seem like they're not going to be doing anything new, because it's the same voice acting, and they would be in trouble because the voice actor for Raziel has fortunately passed away. And I believe the voice actor for Kain is retired, so they'd have some trouble getting some new voice acting in for that. God, if they ever do decide to do a Soul Reaver 3, it's gonna sound weird hearing somebody else play Raziel. I mean, we'll have to, but still, it's gonna be a bit strange. Anyway, the 25th anniversary. Fuck, I'm old. All right, December 10th. Sorry, December 10th, not December 12th. The Lunar Remastered Collection is Lunar and Lunar 2. These are some old JRPGs from the PS1 era. I don't think they ever got out of Japan. Or if they did, I don't think they made it to Europe. I think they got as far as North America and then didn't go any further. I don't actually know anything about this series, but people who do, sure. I mean, more JRPGs, not a bad thing. Metro Awakening VR has a release date now, November 7th. For the PSVR, and I believe it's also coming to various Steam VR platforms and what have you. Again, it looks pretty good. It does have, head tracking, hand tracking, and so on, like the Hitman one was saying about, like, your hands actually do things. You're not just essentially wearing the screen on your face, which is essentially what the Hitman VR game was, is that you are actually doing things with your hands. The world will respond to you if you touch it and push into it and that kind of thing. That all helps to ground you in VR. Games that don't really have that, you kind of feel, you start to remember there's a VR headset on your head. It's you want to get to the point where you don't think that, where you can trick your brain into just thinking that you're actually there. And that is what helps with the motion sickness. It's when you don't have those elements, that's when you're a little too aware of it. Anyway, November 7th for that. Monster Hunter Wilds, also release date February 28th, 2025. There wasn't anything particularly new in the trailer, so I'm not going to bother with it. Sorry, there was actually. There was. They showed off their flagship monsters. So every Monster Hunter game has essentially a new... Well, most of them have new monsters added to it, and then like fan favorites get put in, or they get redesigned and stuff like that. But every one of them has like the flagship monster, which is the new one, and it's like the most dangerous one of the game and what have you. Like Nergigante is Monster Hunter World's one. Monster Hunter Rises Zag something, can't remember its exact name. It's like a big lightning cat. It's like a lightning cat that's also a dinosaur. Anyway, they showed off this one. It's the White Wraith, I think is what they call this. I'm gonna skip to the point where they actually fight it. I think it's that one on the right. No, it's not. It's the one on the ground. Okay, I think it's usually the one on the ground. The only one I've ever seen that's a flying one is Sunbreak. Monster Hunter Rise Sunbreak. It's just effectively a fighter jet, but it's a dragon, which is nuts. Anyway. Okay, you got a better look of it there. It's a dog, kind of, or a cat, tiger type thing, but it also has some kind of rock tentacles, maybe? I don't know. It's pretty nuts looking. Anyway. Monster Hunter Wilds, end of February of next year. Pal World is, again, this was rumored that it was going to be launching on PS5. It is, in fact, launching on PS5. It has, in fact, already launched on PS5, unless you live in Japan, because the latest patent infringement lawsuit that Nintendo filed is filed under Japan's law, which means there is an injunction to prevent Palworld from being released on PlayStation in Japan currently. So it is only really available in North America, Europe, and so on, essentially everywhere except Japan right now. You gotta think maybe Nintendo planned that on purpose, who knows? Anyway, Palworld, Pokemon with guns. I'm sure you know what it is already. I think they're also adding like an end game PvP thing. I think that's what it's showing off here. I don't know much about Palworld other than that. But anyway, everywhere except Japan. Stellar Blade is getting a Nier Automata crossover, which is pretty cool. I mean, when Stellar Blade was shown off and I played a bit of the demo and so on, and I was playing it, I was going, this is just Nier Automata. And it seems like they're aware of that because they're doing a crossover DLC. I'm just leaving the cable down now. Fuck this. The Midnight Walk was a new game announcement a game we hadn't heard of yet. It's allegedly scheduled for spring of next year. This is a PSVR 2 title. Whether it's coming to PC as well, we don't know, because it's not like a Sony first party or anything like that. I think it's going to play a little bit like Moss, where you are guiding this horrible kettle guy. It's from the people behind the game Lost in Random, which again is a third-party thing. It's on most consoles, so I'd imagine this is making its way to PC. It is also it's not exclusive to PSVR 2. There is a flat version, if you like, so you can play it on both. So for that alone, I'd say it's probably making its way to Xbox and Switch and what have you. But I don't know, since this was Sony's show, they're not going to talk about that. Anyway, it's got this kind of stop motion vibe, got a bit of a Tim Burton thing going on. Looks kind of interesting. What the actual gameplay is, it's probably... Is it like all first person? Third person? It's maybe the VR version is first person and the non-VR version is third person. I don't know. It's got a bit of a Little Nightmares thing as well. I'd imagine it's that kind of game. Anyway, this main character is not filling me with optimism. He's a little creepy, or they're a little creepy, I suppose. Shredder's Revenge, a new DLC, Radical Reptiles, where you can play as two characters that I think I must have stopped watching the show before I knew them. Mondo Gecko and Mona Lisa. I personally have never heard of them, so it must have been after me. Anyway, that has also launched today. I think it is free if you already own the game. I'm not sure. Sonic Cross Shadow Generations is getting some more Sonic the Hedgehog 3 film stuff, crossover things. That's the December 12th one. Towers of Akshaba is a really interesting looking game. It's a city building, Animal Crossing type thing, but it also has some like combat exploration elements to it. It's got a lot going on. It's probably got a little too much going on, really, to be honest. But it is going to be jumping into early access on PC, and it will also be doing early access on PlayStation, which is one of the few games that I think goes into early access on Sony. I'm not a huge fan of early access console things. I think that's a mistake, because one on your end for development is that pushing out updates on a console costs money. You have to pay for like certification that everything is fine and it won't like destroy the console or anything like that. And that costs money, which means you don't do it very often. Early access games tend to get updated pretty often. So like the PC version of this will be getting updates way in advance of the console version, which is why I'm largely against early access for console, because they're just always out of sync with each other. What the fuck were those things? Not him. I mean, he looks awful too, but what was... That's a penis. Anyway, Towers of Akshaba, early access, December, I think. Oh, November, never mind. November early access, no specific release. If you are really interested in it, I would say PC, just because you'll get the updates quicker. There's a good chance you just won't get any updates at all for the console version. And that was it for the state of play. There's a couple of other articles here that I did want to point out. So there's the Horizon one that, after announcing the remaster, they decided to just bump the price up as well. It was selling for $15.99, $19.99 in some places, and has now gone up to $34.99 or $39.99 in some places as well. Pretty shitty. Palworld, again, because of Nintendo's lawsuit, is not available in Japan on PlayStation, but everywhere else it is fine for now. And that, yes, that the person playing the character from Ghost of Yotai is already being harassed by shitheads. They just can't help themselves. You know nothing about the game yet, and you're already starting it. Right, anyway. Moving on. Those weren't the only updates happening, because Tokyo Game Show is currently ongoing, so apologies if I miss some stories. They'll probably make their way into the next weekly news recap. So this is Threads of Time. It is a kind of throwback JRPG to something like Chrono Trigger. Sea of Stars came out last year, I think, and that was supposed to be a homage to it, but I think a lot of people felt that the early game was good, and then it just never really evolved beyond that. So there's some hope that Threads of Time will do a bit of a better job than Sea of Stars is. Not that Sea of Stars is bad, exactly. It's a good game. It just could have been better. Anyway, Threads of Time, time traveling, Chrono Trigger, JRPG shit going on. Looks pretty good. Don't think there's a release date. This is just its announcement trailer. So, gonna be a while. I'd say maybe end of next year, early the year after. That's probably what we're looking at here. Or I'll be completely wrong and it's actually like next week. No, just wishlist now. It's currently PC only, but I'd imagine this will make its way to console at some point. Tanuki Postman something. Tanuki Pond's Summer. So this is the next game from the people behind... Shit. I don't... No, not the people behind shit. I don't fucking remember. Does it say it here? No. Alright. They make some other game that people really like. That is nothing like this as well. Anyway, Tanuki Pond Summer. You are playing this Tanuki Postman. You are delivering posts to people. It's got a... From what I'd gather, it's probably got a bit of a Stardew Valley thing to it. In that instead of being a farmer, you're a postman, but it's similar vibe. You deliver posts to people. Parkour. Why not? And that element to it, but you can also do other things. Like, you saw him helping people out in a restaurant, you saw him fishing, and what have you. Anyway, you're playing Pawn, presumably the Tanuki, doing sick tricks. Taking photographs and what have you. It's clearly meant to be a very chill, fun game. I cannot remember. Who's the developer? Maybe the developer's name will remind me who this is from? Oh, it's the Curse to Golf guys. That's who it is. So Curse to Golf was like a roguelike golf game where you are sent to golf hell. And you need to complete the course to get out of hell. That's who it is. Anyway, this is a very different kind of game. That's Tanuki Pond's Summer. I don't know why. Oh yeah, I do have with this. Hey, you guys want a new Dead or Alive game, right? Yeah, a new fighting game from the Dead or Alive people, definitely. This is what you wanted, right? It's not that. It's an immersive romantic adventure game. What are they doing? Anyway. Your new Dead or Alive extreme dating. I guess. Moving on. That was an unlisted trailer too. How did you find that, Eric? You shut up. Anyway, Hirogami. Hirogami looks like a cross between Tearaway and Tearaway, I guess. There's no crossing at all. It's just Tearaway. Hirogami is you're playing this origami thing. The idea is that like print is dead and everybody's going all digital now. And you're like, no, print is still good. Paper is still good. We can do great things with it and so on. So you're an origami guy. I think you can transform into like various things. There you go, like defeating enemies, or not defeating enemies, defeating bosses. I'd imagine is probably what allows you to transform into different things. The Tearaway idea is a lot of Tearaway is built in the similar way. It's like paper crafts, what have you. The entire environment is all paper crafting kind of things. But it is a pretty... It looks like it's a pretty standard platforming game. It's got like stop motion elements to it because everyone's made of paper. Whether it's like digital stop motion or if these are like photogrammatic origamis, I doubt, because that would be incredibly expensive. So it's probably digital, in that they do like a full proper animation and they just cut parts out to make it look like it's stop motion. Anyway, coming next year at some point to PC for now. Two big trailers also shown off during Tokyo Game Show. So there's a little bit more of Metal Gear Solid Delta, which is the Snake Eater remake. It still very much looks like it's a one-to-one remake of Metal Gear Solid 3 Snake Eater, which most people would say is the best one. I'm kind of tied between this and the original Metal Gear Solids. They have different reasons. Metal Gear Solid 1 plays, in my opinion, just plays a bit better. Plays a little bit looser. It's not as strict on you. Snake Eater is a bit harsher on you, but that you can do so many things in Snake Eater, and it's so versatile that it's hard to say that it's bad for doing that. Anyway, this is some early scenes. So this is still part of, if you've played the game before, we're still in Virtuous Mission, which is essentially the tutorial of the game. So we're not seeing anything late game yet. And again, we're all seeing mostly cutscenes. There's no gameplay. These are all cutscenes still. Anyway, no release date yet. You have Ava there. That is just gratuitous cleavage, so we'll just move on from there. Slitterhead showed off an interview with one of its directors, or its director rather, creative director, and trying to talk about how the game plays and so on. So if you have forgotten about Slitterhead, which is entirely possible because it's been a little bit under the radar for the last while, it's coming out pretty soon as well. So the idea with Slitterhead is that these like horrible monsters that are roaming this city that is definitely not Tokyo. And you're this kind of otherworldly phantasm thing. And in order to deal with these horrible creatures, because you want to eliminate them, you have to possess people on the ground. And depending on who you possess, they will have different abilities. And I think the idea is that there are some people that are just always there, that are somewhat main characters. They have very specific abilities assigned to them, like the guy with the sword, you got the claw person, and so on. And then I think there are just random NPC people who will just straight up have random abilities. Or maybe not random abilities, but you won't know what their ability is, I think is the idea. He's talking here that he hasn't seen a game before that's done the possession trope, and it's like, yes, it's been done. It just hasn't quite been done the way he's doing it. But like Mind Jack and Second Sight and a couple of other games have played like this. Mind Jack was not good. Second Sight for the majority was a third-person shooter, and you only occasionally did some of this body jumping stuff. But a game that is entirely just body jumping. The only one I'm aware of is Mind Jack, and it was very bad. So we'll see how this one plays out. Anyway, that's also a penis monster. All right. Anyway, moving on. Some other updates elsewhere. The Final Fantasy Pixel Remasters, Trials of Mana, Legends of Mana, and a bunch of other JRPGs are making their way over to Game Pass. So this was kind of part of the Tokyo Game Show Xbox update, is that a ton of Square Enix's JRPGs are going to be added to Game Pass later in the year. Some of them are already there. We are currently playing through the Final Fantasy Pixel Remasters, and we have played 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5, and we are going to get started on 6 pretty soon. So if you want to play along, I guess, and you haven't been able to, well, you can now with Game Pass. Anyway, moving on from that. So some games getting ported. Slay the Princess, the Pristine Cut. Slay the Princess is this really interesting horror visual novel type thing, where your decisions kind of drastically change how the story plays out. It's also got a bit of a Groundhog Day time loop thing going on. The idea is the princess is, this particular princess is going to destroy the world, and it's your job to kill her, and then every time you try to do it, things go wrong for different reasons. And maybe eventually you'll figure out how to do it. Maybe. Maybe you won't. Maybe you'll be like, it's fine. Who knows? Anyway, so that's getting a console port, and October 24th. Nine Sols also getting a console release. Believe it's next month at some point. Sorry, not next month, November 26th. So Nine Sols has been likened to a side-scrolling Sekiro type game. It is one game that I have been really interested to play, but I've been kind of just waiting for it to get a console release because I don't want to play it on the Steam Deck because it won't look as good. And it may not run that well either. From what I've seen on its Steam page, it runs fine on Steam Deck, but I don't want to play it at 720p. I want to play it at least 1080p, and it's a very colorful game, so I kind of want to get that vibe out of it. Anyway, 26th of November for everything else. It is already on PC. Some more ports. The Resident Evil 3, the OG, is now out on GOG. So that now means that Resident Evil 1, 2, and 3 are now available on PC on good old games. No DRM, none of that business. We are, as I said, before Final Fantasy Pixel Remasters, we are working our way through the Resident Evil games. We have played Resi 1, 2, and 3, the originals. I had to emulate Resident Evil 3 because I couldn't get it to run, couldn't get the PC version to run properly, and I didn't want to play it on PlayStation for other reasons. So, and then we had some emulation issues in that I couldn't actually get into the room with the final boss, and there was all sorts of shenanigans we had to fuck about with the emulator to make it work. We did eventually make it work, but it was kind of awful, and the last boss fight didn't go particularly great. You can go back and look at it if you want. We are planning to revisit a lot of the Resident Evil games because there are shenanigans you can do in the post-game, or not post-game, but like your next game through. If you got a particularly good rank, you get access to some interesting stuff. So it'll be good to have a game that actually works properly for a change. Anyway, that is now out now on GOG, so that's Resident Evil 1, 2, and 3, all available now in one place, which is good shit. Some games getting delayed. Level 5 had a Tokyo Game Show presence, and amongst a bunch of other things that they were talking about, Deca Police, which is the next big Level 5 JRPG. Level 5 JRPGs are rare. They're very rare. And when they come out, they're usually pretty good. Not always, but usually they're pretty good. So Deca Police, I've been kind of keeping my eye on and wondering what has happened to it and why it has disappeared. And it's disappeared because it is more than likely coming to Switch 2 now instead. So it's been delayed into 2026. It's also added PC to its list of platforms. So my guess is that it's this change of platform has probably caused a delay. It's significant enough delay that they're probably looking into adding it to the Switch 2, whatever it ends up being called, as well. It had originally just been an exclusive for the Nintendo Switch. Anyway, so that's the deal with Deca Police. And then the other game that's been delayed that you've probably already heard about is that Assassin's Creed Shadows has been delayed out of 2024 entirely and is moving into February of 2025, where there are way too many fucking games coming out in February. But anyway, originally it was planned for November 12th of this year. It has now been moved to February 14th, Valentine's Day, of 2025. The reason given was that we realized we need more time to polish and refine the experience, pushing further some of our key features. The kind of background reason given was that Star Wars Outlaws did not do great for them. And they want to kind of shore up any of the issues that people were seeing about Star Wars Outlaws and make sure it doesn't happen to Assassin's Creed Shadows, because Ubisoft are not in a good place right now. As we talked about last week, their stock price has tanked considerably. Now, it was massively inflated, which is what we already talked about as well last week, in that there was like an attempt at a hostile takeover for a very long time, and that has only really cooled off recently. So its stock price is really going back to what it used to be. The problem was it was incredibly high. And when people bought in at that incredibly high point, without looking at the history of the company, now they're kind of pissed that they've lost a lot of money. So it's very important for Ubisoft to make money on Assassin's Creed Shadows. Is very, very important. So this delay could be a problem for them, because it could hit Ghost of Yotai. We don't know when in 2005 Ghost of Yotai. Now, I doubt it that it's February, because we would have heard about it before now. Sony would have talked about it before now. If it was going to be February, they definitely would have said something. So I doubt it's February. My guess is late next year for Ghost of Yotai, but I guess we'll find out. Anyway, some other news about Assassin's Creed Shadows. It's going to be launching on Steam on the same day. It seems that Ubisoft are getting rid of their Uplay bullshit. It'll more than likely still be on Uplay, or whatever it's called now. Their proprietary launcher, but it's also going to be on Steam. Pre-orders will be refunded, and all future pre-orders will be granted the first expansion for free. Which is weird. I wouldn't expect them to give back pre-order money, because they, like I said, they need the money. We'll find out. And probably a little bit more interesting, we are departing from the traditional season pass model. All players will be able to enjoy the game at the same time on February 14th. I guess this is more Star Wars Outlaws did have some stuff locked. If you didn't pre-order, you weren't able to access it and so on. They might be getting rid of that, which would be good because it's a very shitty practice. Anyway, so outside of Tokyo Game Show, outside of the State of Play, Epic Games, new games, or not new games, free games for this week is The Spirit and the Mouse. It's got a real strong French vibe to it. I think it's a French developer. You play this mouse who is responsible for all the power going out in the village, and this lightning spirit is now stranded down in this village and isn't able to get power back to the rest of the village, so they have entrusted you to do that, basically. And you learn a little bit about the village and some of the little lightning spirits that are all over the place. We played a little bit of it on the channel. It's okay. It's all right, and for free, like that's fine. Anyway, moving on. So during the State of Play, Sony did talk about what the October monthly games were going to be, and I just kind of skimmed past this. We're going to talk about it now instead. So all available from October 1st. We have WWE 2K24, which is last year's wrestling game because sports games are weird. Anyway, I haven't followed wrestling for a very, very long time, so I have no idea who this guy even is, but he's 4 times on the poster, so clearly he's important. Anyway, more wrestling stuff. The remake of Dead Space that I have still been meaning to play. We did play the original Dead Space not too long ago on the channel, and I've been trying to give myself a little bit of time that I don't remember it so much, so I can jump in and play the remake. So we will get to it at some point, but if you want to jump ahead, it's there now. It's going to be free on PlayStation Plus and Doki Doki Literature Club Plus, which is... It's the original game, but it has like some extra like... I don't think it has any new scenarios, but I think it has like behind the scenes things, like concept art and like unused things and stuff like that. I don't think it's added anything to the story. If you don't know anything about Doki Doki Literature, keep it that way. Keep it that way and play the game. But that's all I'll say. Anyway, moving on. Those are some of the games you can play soon, maybe. But what if you wanted to play something right now? You can play, and more than likely already are, The Legend of Zelda Echoes of Wisdom, which is the latest Zelda game. That's actually starring Zelda herself. First time. She's the protagonist. So this is still using the Link's Awakening engine, which looks really cute, still looks really good. What I've seen from reviews is that for the most part people really like it, really digging the kind of item swapping and item cloning powers that the game has. One thing that I have seen people have mentioned is that a lot of the Zelda games, a lot of the older Zelda games had very specific answers to their puzzles. And in Echoes of Wisdom, there are tons of different ways to solve the same puzzle, but they're kind of messy. You know, it feels like I didn't solve this properly. It feels like I cheated my way into solving it, which I definitely felt in a little bit of Breath of the Wild and Tears of the Kingdom. It does feel like sometimes you're glitching your way past some puzzles. So there is a bit of a vibe of that, but I don't think people are too annoyed about it. It's just kind of something to point out that it is a little bit more playful than you might be expecting. You know, it is expecting you to try lots of different ways to solve issues. There isn't just one way to solve a problem. Anyway, that's Echoes of Wisdom. And we have YouTube crashing. No, we have Mouthwashing. Mouthwashing we played as part of the Steam Next Fest. It's a really interesting first-person horror type game. And the idea is your ship is kind of stranded out in space somewhere. You have this guy who's all in bandages and what have you. He's the ship's captain. Things have gone wrong. Your ship is kind of marooned. It's lost power. You're just stuck in space now, waiting for somebody to hopefully come rescue you. Why is it called Mouthwashing? The reason is you were meant to be shipping this big shipment, really super important shipment to get from point A to point B. You assumed it was like foodstuffs or, you know, something really important for a colony somewhere. And since you're stranded here and all your food is gone, you're like, okay, fuck it. We're going to break into the cargo. We don't want to. We're not supposed to do that. It's obviously against policy and what have you, but we're going to die if we don't. And it turns out you just have cases and cases and cases of mouthwash. That's it. It's just mouthwash. So the only food you have available to you right now is mouthwash. Which, you may or may not be aware, mouthwash is very high in alcohol. And you're not supposed to consume it, you're supposed to spit it out. So yeah, you get some hallucinations and some shit happens. It looks pretty interesting. Anyway, that's mouthwashing out now. Reynatus. I don't know how to feel about Reynatus, so I played the demo of it and it felt a bit cheap. I know it's meant to, it's like it's a Switch game. It's not meant to be on the bigger consoles. It's in fact not on the bigger consoles. I don't even think there's a PC version. I think it's just on the Switch. It does have a little bit of The World Ends With You, but not enough, I think. It's got this kind of dual protagonist thing going on. Some of the combat looks interesting, but in the demo, it was very basic. I think the demo didn't give enough time. Oh, never mind. It is on PlayStation. It's going to look rough on PlayStation. Okay, anyway. I think the demo didn't give enough time to flesh out the combat scenario, because I think the demo is just very early in the game. And a lot of the combat, it's going to be a very heavy combat game, and it just doesn't feel great. I could be wrong. You know, the main game might feel a little bit different, but the demo definitely did not feel good. Anyway, it's Reynatus. Try out the demo yourself, I suppose. Pixel Junk, all you need is help. So this was both announced and launched on the same day. So take that for whatever meaning you want. It's got a bit of a, you know, object silhouette puzzle kind of thing. You might have played them when you were a kid. So it's just like little shapes and symbols, and you arrange them in different ways, and they'll make up a shape. And then it's got a little bit of like a platforming element to it as well. I don't think it can be played single player. I think it is at minimum 2 players, but I'm not sure. Anyway, it's out now if you want to check it out yourselves. I think there is also a demo available for it. Shadows of Doubt. So we got 2 early access games that have now left early access. So Shadows of Doubt is the first one. It is a procedurally generated detective game. Procedurally generated immersive sim detective thing. All of that sounds really good. And from what I've seen from gameplay of it, it's a bit buggy, but otherwise it does very much deliver on what it was setting out to do. You are given procedurally generated cases to solve, and how you go about doing it is up to you. In the immersive sim style of things, you can question people, you can sneak into areas, you can just wait and monitor people or intercept their communications and that kind of thing. There's a lot of different things you can do to make it work. Or you can do the, you know, the traditional, I'm just going to beat you up and we'll see what happens. Anyway, that's Shadows of Doubt, which is now out of early access. And the other one was Raven's Watch, which is also now out of early access. Raven's Watch is a kind of roguelike Diablo type thing. But starring like the Fables characters, the Creative Commons characters, we'll say. So Red Riding Hood, the Big Bad Wolf, Aladdin, you know, all of those kind of characters. Elsa, guy from, the fuck's his name? The Norse guy with the gold dragon, and he sleeps with the gold dragon, and Grendel shows up. What is his name? I don't remember. Anyway, it's that. Pied Piper's in there too. You can play a co-op where you can play it solo, but it is a kind of dungeon crawler type thing with these different Aesop's Fables characters, essentially. Or Scheherazade characters, in the case of Aladdin. Anyway, 28th of November for consoles, but it is already out on PC. And then the last game for our new releases is a remaster, remake, whatever you want to call it. Disney Epic Mickey Rebrushed is a remake and a port, I guess, of the original Wii game where you played Mickey Mouse with this magical paintbrush that could either paint things or remove paint from things. It actually has a morality system, which is kind of weird. I wouldn't expect Disney would allow you to have a morality system in a Disney game, but you can do the good thing and give paint back to the world, or do the bad thing and remove paint from the world. I guess. I'm surprised, honestly, that Disney would allow that, but here we are. It is, for the most part, an interesting puzzle, not puzzle game, an interesting platformer type game. And the demo was decent enough as well. There is a demo if you want to check it out. Anyway, unfortunately, though, it is now time to talk about the worst part of video games, the video game industry. So this is a report from Jason Schreier of Bloomberg. This is a gifted URL, so you will be able to read the full article. Normally you are not able to read the full article in Bloomberg, which is why I don't feature them too often. Anyway, so what the fuck happened with Annapurna? All we knew is about 2 weeks ago that everybody at Annapurna Interactive, which was the video game publishing side of things, just decided, we're done. We're not working for you anymore, and they all quit. So what the fuck happened? Well, what the fuck happened seems to be that Megan Ellison, the owner of Annapurna entirely, wanted to replace Nathan Gray, who was the longtime leader of the publishing arm, Annapurna Interactive, had been since the beginning and had made it like this well-known indie studio publisher type thing. And she wanted to replace him with somebody else, and it seems the rest of the team were like, nope, we're staying with him. So they've all left, and that's kind of the gist of it. Anyway, story goes that Nathan Gary was at the DICE convention in 2023, just doing the general networking and schmoozing and whatever you do. Jeff Keighley, because of course he has to be there, decides to tell Gary that, hey, Megan Ellison is talking to this rival executive that you pushed out of the company because he was a bit of an ass. It seems like she's having dinner with him, and maybe that's not a good thing. And as it will transpire, it was in fact not a good thing. Some history here from Jason Schreier talking about how Nathan Gary came from PlayStation, was really good for Annapurna Interactive, was eventually promoted to head Annapurna entirely in 2021. And talking about the get-together with the former workplace adversary, and that things didn't go great there, and that eventually there was a mass resignation. Then a bit of background about the rest of the Ellison family, which are pretty big money. David Ellison is working on acquiring Paramount, essentially, right now. And their father is like a big media mogul guy. Anyway, the world's 5th richest person. Megan Ellison, for her part, declined to be interviewed, but did say that they would be doing everything possible to support our partners so they can continue to make the games that players love. Doubt. I think you would want to maintain the relationships they already had, but you don't. And Nathan, for his point, he declined to be interviewed, but said that, I know I speak for everyone when I say that we are all genuinely saddened by this outcome. Our team is looking forward to building something new, and we wish our friends and former colleagues the best. So what was kind of rumored there for a while was that the people who had left Annapurna Interactive were going to start their own thing with blackjack and hookers, and it does seem like that's more than likely what's going to happen. Then a little background about, remember, Bloomberg is written for non-video game people, so there's a little bit of background about the layoffs and how the job system or job outlook is looking in the video game industry right now. 2011, Annapurna Pictures is founded. They help publish Her, American Hustle, Zero Dark 30, amongst a bunch of other things. They get a pretty good reputation. 2016, Annapurna Interactive is founded. Nathan Gary is tasked to head the group. He comes over from PlayStation. At the time, he had just helped Journey get out the door, which is obviously a very well-received indie game for the time. So he was pretty good with the indie scene. He had also done a couple of other games. Journey is probably his biggest one. According to people who worked on Journey, he helps make great games better. So seems like he's a pretty good guy to have in charge of your video game publishing arm. For his part, he brought over a bunch of people from PlayStation, so he was bringing his team with him essentially. And they helped put out several acclaimed titles. I'm sure you're aware of a lot of them, but Outer Wilds, Kentucky Route Zero, Cocoon, tons. There are tons of great games that have come out of Annapurna Interactive. And was responsible for generating consistent profits on occasional home runs. So he's doing good, right? He's in a pretty good place. He's doing very good for the company. It is one of the few parts of Annapurna in general that makes money. This will be an issue later. The team worked really well together, with one notable exception, which is Hector Sanchez, and he is the rival executive that was having dinner with the owner at the time. Colleagues felt that Sanchez was cozying up to Ellison, the owner, and taking credit for a lot of other people's work. There was also some suggestions that he had made some unwanted romantic advances towards employees, and at one point tried to make himself head of the internship program, but Gary said, "Oh no, that's not fucking happening. We don't want any sexual harassment lawsuits on our hands. Thanks very much." 2019, Sanchez leaves Annapurna. He wasn't fired. He left voluntarily. The reason for it was never given, but they did say it had nothing to do with any alleged behavior towards women. You can take that for what you think. He said that he left because Gary prevented him from promotion opportunities, which I guess you could say because he stopped him from being head of the internship program. I don't know. It seems like he might have been protecting the company more than anything else, if your unwanted romantic advances were any indication. Anyway, coming up to pandemic time, the film division is doing not great. Hasn't put out any particularly great films in a while. As the pandemic does hit, it's in pretty heavily in debt. Ellison steps away from the company for a while, and Nathan in 2021 is instead put in charge of Annapurna Pictures entirely. So he's not just in charge of the video game wing now, he's in charge of the whole thing. He attempts to essentially turn the rest of Annapurna into have it work the same way as the video game publisher side, which is doing well and making money for the company. And he thinks, okay, well, you've put me in charge, which means you think I'm doing a good job, so I will try to do the job I'm doing there and do it everywhere instead. That doesn't, it seems like people don't want to do that. Gary pushes out a few executives, skirmish with others while trying to implement the kind of workplace culture that had worked well for the gaming division. So the people who were there for the gaming division possibly knew him from his time in PlayStation, because remember, he did bring over a lot of people from PlayStation. So they had already worked with him and knew what he was about. And he's coming in kind of new and also not part of the like film industry and what have you, and then trying to like swing his dick around. So you can kind of see why that probably backfired. Anyway, internal strife continues into 2022. Workers in the video game division feel like they're the ones making all the money, and everyone else is essentially making mistakes and they're having to pay for them. Ellison grows unhappy with Gary's performance. I don't know why. Seems like he was doing a good job where he was, and then you promoted him into a position where he was not going to be able to do it. Classic, really. Anyway. There was some concern that Gary had pulled the company's focus away from other divisions to prioritize gaming. Now, you can think of it as one way, that gaming makes all the money, so obviously you should give it all the priority, or you could look at it, you're giving it all the priority, so it makes all the money, like a chicken and egg kind of thing, which was which. And also, he's prioritizing gaming because that's what he knows. It's what he's good at. And you've put him into a position that he's maybe not so good at. He should maybe have stayed there. Also, you fucked off for like 3 years. Anyway, she decides to come back 2023. She returns to Annapurna, trying to take on a larger role in operation, and instructs staff to report simultaneously to her and Gary. So that's going to work out well. Now, who's our boss? Is Nathan our boss? Are you our boss again? Who's the boss? The problem with that is Ellison is not very good at getting back to people. It takes a very long time to get a hold of her. Projects stall. Things are starting to take way longer than they're supposed to. Meetings are having to be rescheduled. People are deciding to go with other publishers, what have you. Anyway, so March 2024 is a few weeks after the dinner with Sanchez. There's a meeting between Ellison and Gary, and for whatever reason, Gary leaves the company. We don't know why. The speculation is that she tried to demote him, and instead he chose to resign. He says he was fired. Anyway, we do know that Ellison then did fire one of Gary's top executives, so that is either a petty firing, because she wasn't able to fire Gary, or she did fire Gary and fired this guy as well. The guy is not named, whoever it is. I say guy, we don't know. Just a top executive. Anyway, after that, several members of the gaming staff resigned as well. Others are seeking clarification from Ellison before they make their own decision, I guess, what's happening. Ellison decides to hold a bunch of video calls. You're now losing money because he's put the game developers like, the fuck's going on? And apparently she's like, I don't want to break up the group. I want to keep making money. maybe not. I don't know. They have plenty of money. I don't think it was really about the money. Anyway, she proposed instead that they spin out the division. This was rumored that the Annapurna video game guys were looking to spin out to something else to be independent of the bigger company. She said, "Yeah, we can do that, but we'll also keep joint ownership." So it's like you can run independently, but you're still under the Annapurna umbrella, and it would be run by the former team. Get back all the people who left, try to get Nathan back, and so on and so forth. Bring them all back. Bring back Gary. Talk stalled because, as we said, Ellison is not good about getting back to people. So talk slowed down for reasons two parties dispute. For Ellison's part, they said they put out a list of negotiating terms. The Annapurna Games people never responded, and the Annapurna Games people said that they were tired of doing this back and forth on email, and we should just sit down and talk. For whatever reason, Ellison terminates the deal in August, and then very quickly everyone fucking leaves. And the reason why is because Ellison brought back Sanchez, who's the executive who was, remember, alleged unwanted sexual advances, was trying to put himself in charge of the internship program so he could have access to naive employees. It's a questionable issue. Anyway, apparently he had been hired a while ago and was working in the background and was ostensibly president of interactive and new media to develop adaptations as well as big budget games, which is something Annapurna was not known for, rather than the indies that the company was currently publishing. So they're looking to take them in a completely different direction that everyone working there didn't want anything to do with. He is responsible for the Remedy deal that people have heard of, that there's maybe going to be an Alan Wake TV show or a Control TV show or something. But apparently he had been there behind the scenes for quite a while, and nobody knew about it. When this became common knowledge to the rest of the team, they were like, what the fuck? The division of video game employees. They decided that instead of the original deal that they were going to have, where we would spin you out into your own thing, and then Nathan Gary would be in charge of it, and et cetera, no, instead you're all going to be in charge. You're all going to be under Hector Sanchez. There's no it's not Hector Sanchez. That's not his name, is it? Hector Sanchez is from Grim Fandango. Fuck, that is his name. Okay. So the villain from Grim Fandango tried to take over Annapurna Interactive. Brilliant. I have to check now if that really is the villain's name. Anyway, so the idea was, instead of now doing the thing that you all wanted to do, we're going to do this other thing that none of you wanted to do. You're all going to be under Hector Sanchez. You're going to be looking at big budget games instead of indie games. And you're going to report directly to him instead, without Nathan, the guy who you actually like working with. So, unsurprisingly, everyone resigns, and they're now aiming to start a new independent video game publisher under Gary's leadership with Blackjack and Hookers. Annapurna Interactive itself is now dealing with missed contract deadlines and slow negotiations because all of their people are missing, and as we said, Ellison doesn't really know how the company works on the video game side of things, because she largely left that up to Gary for the last 10 years, nearly? 8 years at least. So that'll go well. Anyway, that's what happened. That's what happened with Annapurna Interactive. You fucked with a good thing, is what happened. And also you promoted somebody to a position that they maybe weren't good for, with Nathan's side of things, coming from the video game industry into the movie industry, and then trying to run it like the video game industry. Rubbed people the wrong way there, I guess, because he never really worked out for him. Anyway, right. Acquisition tied to things. Behavior Interactive acquires Darkest Dungeon dev Red Hook Studios. This is after they had already shit-canned a different studio. So clearly money wasn't the problem, because they had the money. Anyway, for an undisclosed amount, Behavior Interactive, the people behind Dead by Daylight, have bought Red Hook Studios, which are the people behind the Darkest Dungeon series. This is Behavior's fourth acquisition in 2 years, which is not good considering so many other video game publishers and video game developers are not doing that. They're doing the opposite of that. They're trying to downsize. They're deciding to buy more people. Which potentially speaks to them being in a good position, but there's also the kind of issues that they've only recently shut down Midwinter Entertainment, and that was only 2 years after they had acquired it. So Like, really hoping the same thing doesn't happen to Red Hook Studios, but they don't. They don't have the best track record right now. They have cancelled a bunch of games. They have closed a bunch of studios because of it. It's kind of a bit strange. Kind of a bit strange position for them to be in. We'll see how that plays out, though. Okay. Don't Nod disappointed by 2024's first half financials, exploring new roadmap options. So Don't Nod, people behind Life is Strange, the original Life is Strange, Vampire, and a few other games. And they put out Jusant and Banishers Ghost of New Eden this year. We did a full Let's Play of Banishers Ghost of New Eden on the channel. I liked it for the most part. It had its issues, but I thought it was alright. Jusant I haven't played. I've been meaning to play it, but I haven't got around to it yet. I did buy it. I just haven't got around to playing it. It's like a mountain climbing meditative thing. But apparently they were commercial disappointments. Despite an excellent critical reception, they unfortunately did not achieve the commercial results we had hoped for and sold well below the company's expectations. Now, we don't know what their expectations were. Famously, expectations are always ridiculous. So, were they ridiculous expectations? We don't know. They're not required to disclose it, so we're probably never going to know. But the developer plans to double down on resources for its next immediate release, Lost Records Bloom and Rage, that is coming out in 2 parts. I would argue you should probably have that come out in 1 part. 1, reduce costs, but 2, to make sure everybody actually buys it. If they're finding out that they actually have to buy a second part of it later on, it's not going to work out well. I'm not sure. Did episodic games ever really work out? I know they're following it because Life is Strange did it. But it was like one of the first ones to do it, wasn't it? Telltale series, the Walking Dead one, I think might have been the first one to try to do the episodic thing. Anyway, so they're pointing to a negative 11% year on year for the first half of this year from the first half of last year. Yeah, double digit percent, even if it's pretty low double digits, it's pretty significant. It's not great. It is operational revenue, though. It's not like profits. So later on, they do point to the fact that they had temporarily paused some development on games. So being down 11% is probably not surprising on operational revenue. Anyway, decrease in development revenue of 2 million, capitalized productions. I don't know what a lot of these mean. Is this just shifting capital? Assets, like selling games? Is that all that is? Down on that, and the latter was owed to a temporary suspension of 2 production lines. So again, I don't think it's surprising because you had suspended 2 that you'd be down money. Does that not follow? Am I reading that wrong? Possibly. I don't really understand financials all that much. In light of Banishers and Jusant's performance, the studio has sanctioned a 24 million euro partial write-down of those games' assets. Somebody do the maths here. Like 2 million, 1.1 million down. We decide to go with 24 million. Where did that come from? Like that's their operational revenue for the first half of this year. And the first half of last year was 16.5 million. And where are they getting 24 million from? Somebody who does money, tell me what's going on there, because I don't understand it. Anyway, Don't Nod to try to, recoup their losses and what have you, or talking to various different people. They're talking about Lost Records and are they going to release it in 2 parts or not? But kind of interesting here is that they're talking with industry leaders to secure economic benefits. So secure economic benefits sounds to me like they're talking to Xbox and PlayStation to get on the subscriptions, to get on Game Pass, and to get on PlayStation Plus. That's what it sounds like to me, because Microsoft and Sony will pay them to be on the subscription service. So that will give them just a lump sum of money. There are 2 unannounced games currently in production, Project 10, Project 14. They're expected to release before the end of 2027, so one of them is pretty early by the sounds of things, maybe both of them. Certain parts of P10 have been scrapped to, I guess, make sure it actually makes its 2027 release date. And then there's 2 other projects that have been paused. So, I mean, pausing projects, I know they're like they're trying to recoup their losses and cut down costs, but actually not putting out a product is not a good way to do that. So I guess we'll see. It's still like fell well below companies' expectations. We don't know what the expectations are, so who really knows if it actually did, or are they just saying shit? Anyway, over on the community side of things, the PlayStation 5 Pro went on for pre-orders this week and was immediately sold out because, of course, and is already up on eBay for like 10 grand in some places. This is the limited edition one, which is like the PlayStation Anniversary version, which has like the old grey 2000 color to it. The reason it was running for that much money, like it was already going to be like £960. And that's because that bundle comes with a bunch of stuff that the regular PS5 Pro doesn't. But still, 10 grand is a bit much, and you just only having 12,300 units, it's kind of, this was always going to happen, and we still haven't really figured out the scalping problem. Like, it's still an issue. Still haven't figured it out. Anyway, if you really, really want one, the cheapest you can see there is 5 grand. Everything else is like 6, 5.5, and then one of them is 10 grand for some reason. Everybody be shocked. I did manage to get a pre-order in for one of the controllers. I didn't end up going for the DualSense Edge because it was like €300. So fuck off. But the controller was like €70, I think. Maybe 79.99, I think is what it was, which is still a bit much, but at least it's not fucking €300 for a controller, right? Elsewhere, Bethesda pulls Thatcher's tech-based Doom mod again. So this is from the Doom 1 and 2 remaster that went out a while ago and had like a mod library browser thing in it that you could just, plug and play. And there's like some questionable moderation going on there. Some questionable curation going on, because there's a lot of things there that are copyright infringement for one. But they're also attributed to the wrong creator, and there's a bunch of other things going on there. But on top of that, it seemed pretty clear that Bethesda did zero moderation whatsoever. They just pointed it at a URL and just left it. That's just it. But anyway, they did at some point take down Thatcher's Tech Base, which is this satirical conversion of Doom 1. I think it's Doom 1, where you fight Margaret Thatcher in hell instead of, devils and what have you. And it is very much like a political kind of thing of its time. Remember, Doom 1 came out a very long time ago, and this was a mod of its time, very much so. It was removed once, and it was removed because of the inclusion of real-world politics. That was the reason given. The mod creator changed it, sanitized it, and instead of it being called Thatcher's Tech Base, it was now called Redacted's Tech Base, and a lot of the art on it was said, "No politics here, only fun shooting things." It's like, various posters all around the place. It's very tongue-in-cheek, very malicious compliance going on. But they took it down again anyway. And this time they stated it was because it still included real-world politics, only now it was different. Real-world politics, I guess. And it was now deliberately disobeying a ZeniMax employee. Oh no. Oh goodness, I deliberately disobeyed a ZeniMax employee. Throw me in the gulag. Anyway, it's down, but you can find the mod fairly easily online. It's not particularly difficult to find. And Doom runs on everything, as we all are well aware of. So it's not like you haven't really gotten rid of it. You haven't really gotten rid of the mod, guys. Anyway, moving on. Remember when I was saying that when Sony puts its stuff on PC, it's going to have to deal with the modders? Well, the modders had removed the PSN requirement for God of War Ragnarok, and then removed the mod again, possibly because of legal issues. So a mod had been released that bypassed God of War Ragnarok's PSN requirement. Why does it have a PSN requirement? It's a single player game. This doesn't make any sense, but whatever. Sony are adamant that all of their games need to have this now. We'll see how that works out for them. Rather concerningly, though, this wasn't because of Sony. There is no suggestion that Sony had pursued any action against the mod at the time of writing. The modder appears to be doing it preemptively. This is a quote from the modder themselves. "I thought that it would be better to remove it from public to avoid any potential threats from the Sony side." So this is what we call shit. Well, yeah, this is shit, but that's not what I was going for. What is it called? Chilling effects. That's the one. Chilling effects in law basically means people are so scared of violating the law that they won't do it. Now, in some cases, that works out. You want people to be afraid of having to go to prison or what have you, so they won't do a thing. But when it's like perfectly normal, because this is a product you bought and you are allowed to modify a product that you bought, there is no legal thing here. But Sony have the money to make it a problem. And that's the chilling effect. They're not going to do it because I don't want to deal with Sony's legal team. Even though you are perfectly valid in doing it, because it is your own product and you are modifying your own product. You could do the shitty argument that it's a license to the project, but whatever, I bought the license, I'm modifying the license then. Like, there are arguments here, but the fact is he's so worried about it that he's not going to do it is chilling effect. This is the same kind of people, and the chilling effect kind of goes broadly across law in general. It's like, I don't want to speak out about this person who's clearly doing something wrong because I'll have to go through court to do it, or I'll get doxxed, or I'll get any of these other things, right? Those are chilling effects. I won't push back on this copyright claim, even though I know this person definitely does not have copyright on it, and I have free use of this footage or whatever it is, because I don't want to deal with Disney's legal team, who will make my life shit. That's chilling effects. You do it, they have not made a threat. They may not even be aware you're doing anything, but because it's a possibility, you don't want to do it. Those are chilling effects. And that is obviously an issue because people don't have access to free, good legal representation. That's going to be an issue has been an issue for a very long time and will continue to be an issue for a very long time because the legal system is great. Anyway, moving on. Last thing for community things. This is more of a do something for me, please. Capcom has a survey out right now that is ostensibly about the deluxe remaster of Dead Rising, but there are some questions near the end of it where it's like, what other Capcom games would you like to see get the deluxe remaster treatment? And I am begging you, please go there and just like click all of them. But specifically click Onimusha and Devil May Cry. The first Onimusha needs to be rescued. First Devil May Cry arguably probably doesn't, but it should. Dino Crisis is there, and while I think, yeah, I would like to see more of it, Dino Crisis needs a remake entirely. Like, it's too old. Resident Evil is down there for some reason as well. It definitely doesn't need that. It's Resident Evil 2 remake, Resident Evil 3 remake, they're already there. Resident Evil 4 remake. The Resi 1 HD remake thing is fine as it is. It's a very good game all by itself. It doesn't need anything. Code Veronica is the only one really at this point, and the rumor is they're working on it, so that's the only ones. Anyway, go there and just click all of them. just do it for me, all right? Click all of them, right? All right, we'll leave Zelda to play. I think it's already looping. It's already looping. Okay. All right, that was your news for the 23rd to the 29th of September 2024. So we had some stuff from the State of Play. Ghost of Yotai was their main game that they wanted to get everybody to know about, and now they do. It's out next year at some point. It's starring a female character, so of course she's getting harassed by that side of the video game community. That's great. Yeah, you just love to see that. Anyway, no release date or anything for it, but it's just next year at some point. There's been some mention that Ghost of Yotai will start more of like a series of these kind of games, and that they're going to be putting out like smaller Ghosts of type things. Just something I have said Sony should be doing for a very long time because they stopped doing it. And now we're in this position. Anyway, elsewhere on the State of Play, the Horizon Zero Dawn remaster that was rumored has now been confirmed, and then they also doubled the price of the old game. So they're trying to double dip on that. So hopefully you bought it already. And if you really, really want it, I guess you can spend the extra tenner. What they're adding to it, I don't think is worth it, personally. But that's your business. Legacy of Kain. Soul Reaver 1 and 2 remasters, pretty huge news for me, and maybe only me, but I'm really happy about it. Would I prefer to remake? Yes, absolutely. But remastered works too. That's fine. The issue with a remake is that they could fuck it up. At least with the remaster, it's going to play largely the same as the original game. So look for that at some point when it comes out. We'll play it on the channel. Is anything else interesting at the state of play? Yes, probably. Can't think of them right now. Elsewhere, Tokyo Game Show, we saw a little bit more Snake Eater. It still looks like they're going, yeah, definitely for the 1-to-1 remake of it. They're not going to be doing anything massively new, which is fine. Don't break it. It's good. It's already a great game. Leave it alone. Just make it look a bit nicer. That's it. Slitterhead showing off a little bit more of its stuff. I'm still on the fence about whether I like the idea of Slitterhead or not. I don't like the idea of abandoning characters, I guess, or using characters as consumables, I guess is a way to look at it. I don't know how I feel about that. Anyway, we'll see. If there's a demo, I'd like to play it if there's a demo of it. We saw a little bit of Threads of Time, which is going to be like a Chrono Trigger throwback type thing. It looks interesting. Couple of other things from Tokyo Game Show. Assassin's Creed Shadows getting delayed into February is very risky for Ubisoft. I don't think it's going to conflict with Ghosts of Yotai. I have a feeling they'll be far enough apart from each other that they won't like cannibalize sales. Which is probably a good thing for Ubisoft because I think people would. I'm trying to think now because Ghosts of Yotai will be an PS5 exclusive, so there'll be fewer people in general will be able to play it. But I feel like if it was available to everybody, that's the one that would get picked. Because it's a PS5 exclusive, it does leave the door open for Shadows for people on Xbox or PS4, PC, and so on. Because I don't think Ghost of Yotai is getting a PC release same day. Sony has been pretty forward about saying that it's at least a year exclusivity on the console, and then maybe a PC port, and even then, it's not a guaranteed port. Bloodborne. Anyway, elsewhere, industry bullshit. Where we have maybe what happened with Annapurna Interactive. It is largely what was rumored in the first place. There was some issue with wanting to get it spun out. It's somewhat of a hostile takeover kind of thing, trying to just parachute in an executive that people didn't like working with. And they made it clear they didn't want to work with him by everybody just leaving. So, you fucked with a good thing. And that's what happened. Having Behavior Interactive acquire the Darkest Dungeon guys. Seems pretty straightforward. And Behavior Interactive have been trying to position themselves as the horror publisher for a while now. So it makes sense. But on the other hand, they have a bit of a wobbly track record with the developers they've acquired. They're not quite EA levels yet, but they're getting there. They're not quite Embracer levels yet, but they're getting there. Anyway, and we had news about Don't Nod's expectations. It's a bit. I'm actually a little disappointed that Banishers didn't do well critically. I kind of assumed it didn't because I really heard nothing about it from anybody else, but it was decent. They could have built on it further in a follow-up or something. Personally, I would have followed up Vampire instead. But again, I don't know how critically well that did either. And that's mostly because I just like vampires. I'm a little biased. I do like vampires. Anyway, that's your news for this week. But what is happening over on the channel? Well, we do have our roadmap for 2024. So I have swapped out Death Stranding and put in Soul Reaver instead because I just don't see us getting to Death Stranding this year. We also don't have a release date yet for Death Stranding 2. There was a TGS Death Stranding thing, but it wasn't anything new. It's all stuff we'd seen already. And Kojima has said he's not going to talk about the release date until next year anyway. So that probably says late 2025 at best. Maybe 2026 at this point. So I guess we'll find out on that one. So in that case, we have a bit of time before the sequel. So I've decided to put Soul Reaver in its place. if you were looking for streams this week, you would probably have been disappointed because we didn't stream at all, really, this week. Some of that is because I had an operation during the week and I've just been too tired to do anything. And then some of it was mental health issues. Anyway, the point is I didn't stream last week. But off stream, I've been playing a couple of games that I don't know if I like them or not. So the first one was Sakuna Rise and Ruin. This came out a good while ago. And it was somewhat on my radar for a while because I kind of liked the vibe of it. So the idea is you are playing Sakuna. She is a young goddess. They're doing the anime thing where she looks like she's 8 years old, but she's actually like 1,000 or something like that. Anyway, she is the daughter of a god of war and a god of harvesting. So you have in the game a mix of combat and farming simulator kind of stuff. So the general gist of it is you grow rice during the year, and the better quality rice you grow, the more rice you grow, and so on. That like directly contributes to your character's combat level. So you don't level up by defeating enemies, you level up by growing rice throughout the year. Whatever the quality of the rice is, that's how good your combat is and how hard you hit people and what have you. And then there's the usual thing of, finding resources and making better equipment and doing the harvest better and what have you. The writing is pretty funny. It's very anime, but it's also done really well, I think. And voice work is decent. It is, again, leaning pretty heavily into anime comedy. The issue I have with it is, and I say this for a lot of games that try to split combat and life sim things, is that they tend to either half-ass both of them, or one of them is done really well and the other one is a bit lacking. And the one that's lacking in this is probably the combat. It's not amazing. It feels a bit floaty. Like it's shown off really well there. I wish I could do that. The crash combos are probably a really interesting thing. Is that when you can hit smaller enemies into bigger enemies and it does damage to them. You can see like that kind of hit stop that's going on there. That's one enemy being smacked into another enemy. That's cool. I do like that part of it. It's just making that happen is a little difficult. It does seem a bit random a lot of the time. And getting the story to advance, it's a bit of a grind because, again, your level only goes up with, again, your rice, right? And it takes a full year for your rice to grow. So if you're struggling with an area and you can't get through it because you're not high enough level, you're waiting a year, effectively, in the game. Now, it's pretty quick. It's 3 days is a season kind of thing. It's spring 1, 2, 3, summer 1, 2, 3, autumn 1, 2, 3, and so on. So it's not like it takes a very long time, but it takes a bit of time. And the last thing about it is that I don't actually know if I'm doing it right. Because it is very in-depth on how to grow the rice. Like, so much so that it's like, is this actually how you grow rice? Am I, like, doing literally all of the things? It's not just put the rice seed down, water it a bit, and then wait. You're having to do a lot of things. You're having to get the water level right. The spacing of each individual seedling has to be correct. You need to keep weeds out of it. You need to keep pests out of it. The water level changes depending on the season. You need to make sure it's correct. Once it's actually sprouted the rice out, now you need to raise the water level, but not too much. You need to make sure the heat of the water is a specific amount, and so on. There's so much going into how to actually grow the rice. I have no idea if I'm doing it right or not. It's difficult to tell. So that's kind of why I'm a bit, I don't know about it. I think I'm bouncing off of it, to be honest. The other game that I have been playing through is Pathfinder: Wrath of the Righteous. Pathfinder is... I know the Pathfinder fans will be annoyed at me for saying it, but it's similar to Dungeons & Dragons. But it's a bit of a more complex Dungeons & Dragons, so it's closer to the early rules of Dungeons & Dragons, which are a little bit more involved, and had like very specific rules for very specific situations. And that has gotten simpler over time, and that is definitely the reason it has gotten more popular as well, because it's much easier for people to jump into. But if you've already, a veteran of like tabletop kind of tactics type games like D&D and what have you, Pathfinder does have some extra levels of complexity to it that can be rewarding. I'm having the same issue with this that I'm having with Baldur's Gate, and we're going to talk about Baldur's Gate in a minute as well. I'm never, ever, ever happy with my character. Ever. They always feel I built them wrong. Like, I didn't pick good, like, synergistic things to it. It just never feels right to me. So I've started and restarted the game a couple of times with different characters, different classes, and I just haven't been happy with any of them. So I'm going to wait on Wrath of the Righteous, and I have instead restarted Baldur's Gate. And I've made the same mistake again in Baldur's Gate 3, because I've never gotten out of Act 1, because I've never even made significant progress into Act 1. Because I play my character for a bit, and I'm like, I hate this character. This character sucks. I'm going to make a different character. I think I've made one for each class at this point, and I'm still not happy with them. I think I need to just go with it and give it a bit more time. I think that's kind of been the issue, is that I'm bouncing off them too early. And that's like, even in D&D, level 1 of your character is super boring. Like level 2, level 3, it starts to get a bit more interesting, but really level 1 and 2, it's really shit. Because you're very weak and you can't do very much. And it's very easy for you to die. Not so much in the game, because, you know, you can tailor the difficulty level to it and it's not so bad. But it never feels great, I guess. So, yeah, I think I need to just pick a character and just go with them. And just force my way through Act 1. Even if I'm not necessarily enjoying the character. Just do it. Sexy times. Anyway, that's what I've been doing off stream. Anyway, next week, because I didn't stream anything this week, we're in largely the same position. So Hollow Body, I think we're about halfway through it, maybe a little bit less than halfway through it. So we're going to continue with that for Tuesday and Thursday. There won't be a stream on Wednesday because I'll be playing Pathfinder, the actual tabletop with the dice and everything. I think I have to check with the DM of that, but I think we're playing on Wednesday. And then Friday we'll start. We still haven't started Pentiment, so we'll start Pentiment on Friday. Debatable if I'll be here on Saturday, because I think I'm playing D&D on Saturday, in person, which means I just won't be here to stream. So we'll check on that. I think it's still going ahead, but we'll see. And then otherwise we'll be back to the weekly news recap, which is what you're watching right now. So that's it from me for today. That's your news for the 23rd to the 29th, September 2024, and your channel update for the same time. I will be back on Tuesday for Hollow Body, but until then, have a good rest of your day, and a good Monday, I suppose, and I will see you then. Bye-bye.